I think a good way to get started on this is to say, hey, this is the first time that we're doing this, right? And I thought it would be a good idea to just kind of have casual conversations that tap our experience with helping organizations get started, our experience with organizations that are in growth phase, and maybe even conversations around the acquisition and selling of these sort of companies. I think a lot of people who are looking into healthcare entrepreneurship don't have access to these real conversations, and it would be good just to give kind of general advice, general guidance on, what's happening. I think one of the questions that come up a lot, and I think you'll agree, is that question of kind of why did you get into this business, or people who are healthcare workers trying to find a way out, and they may have come across the content and saw what my story is
Yeah.
and thought, hey, maybe that might work for me too. But I think these sort of conversations need to be had because there's a lot to learn being a fly on the wall, right? Like just kind of listening in and observing. From your time working with me, has there been any sort of question or any sort of like blind spot that you've had that you think I could clear up?
Yeah, so I think something that I think people would be curious to know is how is it that after being in the healthcare industry for like 20 years, you're still a part of it and trying to do things still within the healthcare industry when you've covered in the past that you are not really that much into healthcare? Yet that's something that you like to promote.
Well, I think since I have taken like a public role or a public persona, right, on my channel ENTP Life, which is not this channel, it's just a channel about me being who I am. I think by doing that, a lot of people have asked me questions, and I really hate repeating myself, but I also really like helping people. So I'm still involved in the space probably for a few reasons. The first reason is because I know how to make money in this space. So it comes more or less naturally to me. I started doing this when I was 14 years old, right? The
Yeah.
story is I helped my mom get started to understand it, started to see the money potential, and I come from a healthcare family, so everybody was expected to kind of pursue a profession in healthcare. And while I was studying in college, kind of pursuing that route, we were still in business. So for me, it's really what I know the best, healthcare entrepreneurship. That's the beginning. That's where everything started for me. Another reason why I am still involved in the space is because I see how it's changed everything for my family, right? Growing up, we never had any sort of financial hardship. My parents were always employed, never laid off, never really needed anything. And I kind
Like
of
stability.
stability, yeah. And I always recommend what has worked for me to other people. So when people ask me, well, what should I study in college? It's like, if you can tolerate working in healthcare, because it could get kind of disgusting or gory at times. It's like, if you like helping people, you could tolerate that. I always recommend pursue some sort of profession in healthcare. 3 reasons for that is I've never seen like a recession or anything really hurt the industry. At least from an employment standpoint, people always need healthcare. People want to stay alive.
Yeah.
I've never seen there not be a need. So it's a consistent way to earn. There's a lot of movement of money in the healthcare arena. So just based on the sheer size of the industry. It's, almost $5 trillion of economic activity in the United States out of $20 trillion a year. So it's a substantial chunk of what happens here. So I like it for that reason. And another reason why I like healthcare as a career path is because you could earn well as an employee, like average to above average income, but there's so many other directions that you could go in from an entrepreneurial standpoint that I think is interesting, that not too many other professions that you could learn will allow. Satisfies a human need. All those reasons are reasons why I stay involved, and I stay involved because the question always comes up.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of always pulled back in, always talking to people about how I did what I did, how they could change their life, how they could shape their life. So
Yeah, so like you went to college and what was your major?
a couple different things.
A couple different things.
Yeah, a couple different things. I started out in pharmacy school. So it was a doctorates in pharmacy, and it was a private school, and I thought it was too expensive. So I didn't want to kind of drain my parents of their money or their savings, and I didn't want to take on too much college debt. So I thought that I would go to a state school at reduced tuition, study most of that curriculum, and then go back to pharmacy school for like the major classes or the specialization classes,
Got it.
right? Because it was a 6-year program. So it's like, if I could get 4 years done on the cheap, I'll circle back.
Trying to save money.
Yep, I'll circle back and finish out the degree. And at that time, pharmacists were making anywhere from like 90,000 to 120,000 a year. This is circa 2000. And I was like, yeah, that would be
Could make sense. Going into it, your mother already owned the home care agency in New York, right?
Yeah.
So did you know at that time you were gonna pursue healthcare as an entrepreneur like she did? Or did you actually think you were gonna be working as an employee?
No, I always knew it was going to be both.
Okay, you
'Cause-
wanted to like merge the two.
They were always simultaneous.
Yeah.
The business was still running. I'm still working in it. And in college, I actually ended up expanding the business into the region that my college was in, because I kept seeing opportunities, and I was like, why not expand? And she was like, why don't you? So that's when I started to go out on my own and form my own agency and expand in that way. I was probably in my second senior year of college.
Second senior.
Yeah. I was undergraduate for 7 years, so I was doing what college students do.
Yeah.
But I think I always knew that I would be in healthcare because I saw it as secure and stable,
Yeah.
and I saw that it worked for my parents. And of course, kids always think they're smarter or more intelligent than their parents, and it's like, well, I could do much better than them, and
Yeah.
let me just go the same route and get that done. And if you think about it, here in the United States right now, the average salary is about 50 or 60,000 a year or something like that, and that would be considered like doing okay for an individual. And at the time, this is 22 years ago, you could get out of most of the healthcare professionals at that price point. And then the average then might have been around like 40 or something like that. So it was above average income, and you can get to above average income with even a 2-year degree.
Yeah.
So it seemed like the sensible thing. Like, I think at the time, minimum wage was about $6 an hour or something like that, $5-6 an hour, and like maybe $5.25 if I'm not mistaken. So most college kids who didn't have a profession were making like between $5 and $8 an hour, working retail, working wherever. And I saw, well, if I studied any of these healthcare professions that were college based or anything like that, that I would at minimum be earning about 25 an hour. So I'd be
Yeah.
doing better.
A question that we always get asked from people looking to start their own agency is, "Oh, I'm still working. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can start a business on the side and actually make it be my main source of income at some point if I'm still working full time." So how do you think you manage that, and what are the tips and tricks that you would have or that you would be able to give to people who are trying to pursue a similar thing where they're working as a nurse or a therapist but are looking to start a side hustle to then make it become their main source of income?
Yeah, I think for me, I like healthcare because most of the professions are 3 shift, like around the clock. So I knew that I could work evenings, overnights, doubles on weekends to make the necessary money that I needed to make so that I could eventually have the 9 to 5 business hours to function. Because in the healthcare staffing world, the people that you're going to be in constant contact with are working the 9 to 5 schedule.
Yeah, definitely.
So the directors, the administrators, the human resource personnel, they're all day shift people. But the healthcare environment is 24/7, especially hospitals, nursing homes. So if you aren't working in one of those roles, you're actually working as a clinician, you typically can work around the clock. So for people who are concerned with the transition or how to organize themselves, my advice is work one of the professions that allows you to work evenings and nights, if you are able to, weekends especially. For me, I used to work these suicide weekends where I would come in on Friday, work an 8 hour, Saturday, Sunday, I'd work 2 16s. And I had a full-time job as well. So on the weekend, I could hammer out 40 hours and
Yeah.
have Monday through Friday free if I just wanted to
Work on the business.
work on the business and have a full-time source of income. Just the other day, I was talking to one of my friends. Her name is Brandy. She on YouTube. She's my favorite nurse B, my fave nurse B, and she is an LPN that's become an RN. And she did a post the other day that she saw an RN supervisor shift paying $54 an hour, and she just became an RN. So that's probably double what she would have gotten paid as an LPN. And she's like, I really don't want to work any more shift work. She's focusing on her own business. And she was like, should I work this shift or not? It was like a post on her stories. And I told her she absolutely should. And she was like, I really don't want to. And we went back and forth a little bit. And I was like, look, if you're working on your business, you should still be working a job so that you are alleviating the pressure of having to make the business succeed. And if you alleviate that pressure, you're going to give it more time. You're going to give it the amount of nurture that it needs to work rather than being so hard pressed to make money.
Yeah.
So if you could eliminate that anxiety of how am I going to make it month to month or week to week, as a healthcare professional, you can work that job. You could work for your own agency. You could work in a lot of different ways to meet your monthly obligations while keeping as much of the capital still in your business so that you're able to grow it, keeping that pressure low.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And at what point did you feel comfortable enough to quit your job and actually take on this new company that you had just developed or helped grow in this new area in New York, and push that to be your full-time thing? Because we also get those questions a lot. Like some people are wondering like, oh, I already have a staffing agency in place, but I don't know if I should keep my full-time or not. Like I'm making money, but they're always concerned about that stability, and it's very different if you're a business operator and you're having to rely on that to be your main source of income versus you receiving a salary or, just working per shift and knowing that you're going to get paid for that regardless.
This is like a few different answers. Because for me, my mindset is completely different than the average person. So I don't like ever worrying about money. Mm-hmm. So I kept my jobs. I was investing in real estate. I had other streams of income. I also had gone through a major economic downturn. So I always wanted to be insulated from broke.
Okay.
So even with the business growing, I think we had gotten to like maybe 6 million in annual rev. At that time, I might have had like $1.2 million or so in real estate. I had a shared office space. I had other things going on, and I was still staffing myself
Through your company.
through my company,
Okay.
picking up shifts at Cornell for radiography work. I always kept the job, even though there was enough money coming in from the business to pay me a salary. I earned minimum wage in my business up until 2015 because I didn't want to draw down. I'd rather invest.
Allowed to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good mindset to have as well because you are working on that business to like get the benefits long term, while you're still doing other things that allow you to pay for your everyday things now.
Yeah. And the only trade-off in that is you're going to work a lot,
Yeah.
right? Like you have to put in that heavy work in the beginning and make the appropriate investments in your business, right? Then the most appropriate investments are usually the human capital that you hire,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't want to start a business that is completely dependent on you
Yes.
because it's not a business, it's a job, right?
Yeah.
Then I started to make investments in other assets that would generate cash for me, even if business was down or there were changes or anything like that. So I think ultimately you have to be willing to put in the early work, the hard investments to reap the benefits later on. It's like farming, right?
Yeah.
Planting your seeds and
Yeah.
nurturing it rather than eating the first thing that sprouts. Like you eat the whole.
Yeah.
You can't do that, and a lot of people do that because the minute that they can replace their job, they
Are
do,
like, oh, I'll do it. Yeah.
and then now they're just doing another job, except
Yeah.
that job follows you 24/7.
Yeah. You waited until you had enough capital to actually invest in resources that would allow you to free up your time.
Beyond that, it was I can't stop working, right? If I have free time, I'm doing something in that time that is not usually recreational, right? Even though it may be recreational to me, I might enjoy
You
it.
might enjoy it. Yeah.
I'm usually trying to monetize it, or I kind of put it second to things that earn. So it isn't unusual for me to work 80, 90 hours a week on things.
Yeah.
So I was never kind of in a rush to give up the salary until I really felt comfortable in
Okay.
everything else, because I didn't want to be a drain on
On
any
the company,
business.
or just relying on that one thing in case something were to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even now, I keep things affordable. I really don't like to spend money on living expenses. So I try to keep my living expenses as lean as possible. So I'll give an example. Like in 2000, from like 2009 to probably that 2015 point, I got my monthly living expenses down to less than $1,500 a month. And that was automobile, the mortgage on my apartment, food and transportation, and my student loan, and everything, that $1,500.
Wow.
And at that time, just through my job, I was making billing like $50 an hour. So, 1 week of work could cover my month.
Yeah.
So, and I like to keep it that way because
And the rest you were investing back into the business, or were you doing other things on the side to invest that money that were not related to healthcare?
it was back into the business and into real estate mostly, and then, other failed businesses. Like I have a chronic condition where I start companies. So, a fashion app, shared office space, real estate. What else did I do in that era? There quite a few things, but my philosophy on money is that it's a tool,
Yeah.
right? It's a tool for me to make more money. So any surplus money was reinvested in something, whether it's left in the company to afford new talent, invested in ads, invested in IT, invested in you name it. That's how we actually
Yeah.
developed our software, right? We had enough money to either choose to build out our own software or pay a software provider.
Yeah.
So I thought build it out the way that I need it in a way that I could license it out to others and generate income
Yeah.
down the
And
line.
now that's being sold to others, so you're getting your money back anyway.
Correct.
Good. One of the things that we get asked a lot about is how to keep your operating costs low when you're just getting started. So, a lot of people out there make people believe that they need a physical office space and that they need all of these resources and tools to actually start out their business. And for that reason, they fear getting started because they're like, oh, I don't have 50,000 to invest in this. So, when you were just getting started, what did you do to try to keep those operating costs low and still make things work for you and grow the way you wanted them to grow?
Just getting started, we actually ran our business from home in the beginning because the first employees were my mom, her friends, her colleagues, that sort of thing. So running it from
Didn't
the
make
house
any sense to have physical office.
it didn't matter because the people that we were working with were familiar and close.
Yeah.
And in healthcare staffing, you don't really have to meet with the facilities that you're staffing at. So there's,
Yeah.
it's not, you don't have to have that office presence. But as soon as we started making a little bit of money, we ended up moving into an office space, then buying a building. But that kind of came later as we were starting to interface more with
Yeah.
with employees that weren't familiar.
Yeah.
Right, 'cause-
It became a need until you didn't do it until it actually became a need and you could afford it.
Correct. But in the current environment, the world's a lot different. So the thing that I recommend people do when they're just starting their business out and they don't want to run their business from home either because they're afraid of the appearances or they don't want, folks showing up to their house,
Yeah.
right? But I totally get that.
Yeah.
Go with the co-working space. You have Regis, you have WeWork, you have Spaces, you have tons of co-working spaces throughout the country. It's a new model that I would say got popular in the past 10 years, no, like 12 years, where you can get a membership to an office space for less than $300 a month. I think Spaces does it at like $150. You get access to an office, you get a mailing address, you get the things that you
You
need.
get what you actually need when you're just getting started.
Flexibility in lease terms. So if you needed to meet a client, that's where you meet them. If you need an address for filing licensure, filing for your entity, a place where you could receive mail, a place that you could put on your website, that's your location. And it's going to be done really cheap. So like, you could get an office, like a dedicated office, anywhere from like $600 to like $2,200, depending on the city, location, blah, blah, blah. But the co-working spaces are so much cheaper. So from a space standpoint, I would say that's how you would handle it. If you're okay running from home, run from home. If your state allows you to run from home, if it's a licensed state, run from home. It's going to keep your overhead low. But the next cheapest option between internet, you get access sometimes to conference rooms, you get the common meeting areas. For less than $300, I think it's worth it.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that you could do to save money is kind of build your own skills, right? Like for me, I've got a lot of random skills that I accumulated over the years for just doing things myself. And I feel like in today's time, any skill set you want to learn, you could probably learn for free on YouTube.
Yeah.
So rather than being dependent on third-party providers, if you're willing to put in the work, learn how to use different pieces of equipment, learn how to use different forms of software, learn everything from these free sources and do it yourself. Because chances are you could zero in on what you actually need on the cheap rather than paying some third-party service provider who,
Yeah.
is making a living off of you.
We actually have, and it's on our website, you guys can access it if you want, a free PDF that lists all of the things that are needed when starting a healthcare staffing agency. But in terms of skill sets, what do you think somebody needs to develop for themselves when starting a healthcare staffing agency?
The skills that people need from day one, I would say, is basic computer skills, understanding how to navigate, Microsoft Office suite, so Word, Photoshop. Well, that's not Microsoft, but Photoshop. Learning how to use Photoshop would be helpful if you're trying to design your own things. Learning how to use PowerPoint, Excel. Those are essential. Learning basics on kind of bookkeeping and financial management would be helpful. Getting familiar with some sort of payroll software, I think, would be an essential, kind of computer skill. Just learning how to get around the internet.
Yeah.
A lot of people, unfortunately, don't have that skill, especially in healthcare, because
In healthcare, yeah, I've noticed that a lot of our clients that are part of our full healthcare staffing setup program don't really know how to manage those things. They don't know that DocuSign exists. They don't know how to track emails. So those things I've seen, do become a concern for a lot of them, because it's like, oh, it's only one person, it's only me, and I don't know how to use this thing. So how am I gonna, work on it?
yeah, there's plenty of people that have YouTube channels dedicated to every software that you could think of.
Yeah.
So if you know what software you need to use, you could learn it, just like you learn how to use an EMR system.
Yeah, then nowadays you can just Google pretty much anything, and Google's gonna tell you if there's a tool for that, and chances are, if you need to do it, they've already created a tool that automates that process for you.
Another skill I think people need to polish and develop is the skill of getting rejected gracefully. What I mean by that is most people, and I find that, this is going to sound super sexist, but most women, and a lot of our clients are women, they're nurses who are going
Yeah,
into healthcare
most
staffing.
of them are.
They haven't gotten used to rejection. And this is a weird analogy, but I think it's the reason why there are more male salesmen. Guys have been rejected by women their whole life, right? From kindergarten till adulthood, there's some girl telling you no.
You just get used to it,
You just get used to it.
right?
And you
It's
know,
like, they're like, oh, that's just normal life.
yeah, nobody likes me, and I just have to keep trying harder until I become likable.
Yeah, somebody's gonna like you at some point.
Yeah, you learn that lesson in life. So it's the same when it comes to sales. And I've noticed this, the difference between men and women who are getting into their businesses is that the sales part is what frightens them. And the issue with the sales part that frightens them is that they have to open themselves up to a stranger and be told, no, I don't like your service, I don't like you, not right now, whatever. Even getting told not right now, or we don't work with agencies, they take that as a personal rejection, that maybe they said something wrong, or it's their sales pitch, etc. It's like, no, this company doesn't work with agencies.
Yeah, or they
So-
are just not in need of one right now, and you just kind of have to, realize that it's not you or what you're offering. It's just that they're not the right person for you at that time.
Yeah, but for them it's rejection.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they don't have a good sense of the conversion ratio of cold calling. It's very low. Like, you're going to get rejected
Yeah.
97 to 98% of the time
Yeah.
off the bat,
Yeah.
right? So if you know that that's the case, then you know that you need to make 100 calls
Yeah.
to get 2 possible dates,
Yeah.
okay?
And it's good knowing that, going into it. So you haven't made 50 calls and then realize, like, oh my God, I haven't even gotten one yes, and then want to just drop the towel and be like, that's it. If you already know that the conversion rate is very low and that chances are it's going to take you 100 calls, 200 calls to make one sale, then you're just going to have to push through if you want to actually make that a business. Because at the end of the day, all that matters is that you get one yes.
The one yes can build your entire business.
Yeah.
There's so many people, like, you see it all the time, so many success stories. Right when they were about to quit, one thing hit for them, that changed their business trajectory
Yeah.
completely. And it only takes one good client to start building your business. And you obviously don't want to be a one client organization, but
Yeah.
that one
But you can
client
start there.
can get you started, make you enough money to get you out of your job, make you enough money for you to feel secure and confident in hiring other people. It only takes one. And
Yeah.
it might take you 1,000 interactions to get that one. But once you get it, it starts putting you in a direction to earn. So the skill of getting rejected is important. And of course, building sales skills. You're not going to persuade somebody into using an agency. That's not what I mean by sales skills. People kind of confuse that. It's the ability to just have an easy, fluent conversation with somebody so that you are clearly saying what you could do and how you could help. The tracking of your data. This is something that a lot of people don't do, and why CRM systems are popular now.
Yeah.
Is because you need a system of tracking and following up what you're doing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will make phone calls, but not really track the frequency of their calls, the status of their calls, what time periods are converting better for them or worse.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of people don't know that they should be tracking those things.
no, because they make 10 calls and they quit.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't.
You want to see, try to review if there's a pattern that exists. Maybe afternoon calls don't do well. Maybe the person in charge just doesn't work afternoons, so you're never going to get a yes because you're always talking to the secretary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those things should be tracked that way. Now, in your opinion and your experience, what do you think is harder? Actually recruiting and employing your first employees or getting your first contract?
Getting your first contract is harder because getting your first contract is an outbound effort, usually, right? A facility doesn't start Googling looking for
staffing agencies.
staffing agency in my area. That's typically not the way that they're going to find you.
Yeah.
So getting your first contract is going to be a little more difficult, far more difficult, actually, than getting your first employee. Because for most of the people who are starting, they're either starting because they themselves are a healthcare professional that they plan on staffing. Their spouse is a healthcare professional that they plan on staffing. They worked in human resources in healthcare, so they know that they can recruit.
Yeah.
So most of the times, the first placement or employee is someone really close to you or that's comfortable.
It's usually not salespeople who are starting the staffing agencies. It's mostly people that are already in the healthcare industry as nurses or with an administrative position.
More even like recruiters and HR people, because they're already accustomed to that piece, so that piece doesn't intimidate them.
Yeah.
Like the recruitment side, finding employees, it's like, no, that I have down. They may be intimidated by navigating the healthcare systems. But the main reason is because when you look at sales, on one hand, you have kind of outbound sales. The people that you're coming across are not necessarily interested in what you're offering. If you look at Google, for instance, and why pay-per-click and search-based advertising works, is because everybody that is coming to that lead is already interested in that thing,
Yeah.
right? So from a contracting side, it's not that way. They're not necessarily searching for an agency.
Yeah.
It's usually the other way around. When it comes to recruiting, the people who are responding to your ads are actively looking for jobs. They didn't just randomly come across your posting as a nurse and say, oh, I want to start working for this agency.
Yeah.
No, that's usually not how it works. They're usually looking for work. They're either looking to change positions, change cities, change states, change specialties, and they start the search. So already they are responding to your advertisement that is appealing to them. So
Yeah.
it's
From a need that they already had themselves.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to get staff than it is to convert a contract.
Yeah. So for a while we've been talking about why you did it, and even we were going into some things that helped you build what you built. But how did you actually start this, and what pushed you to do it for yourself?
To start the company, again, was my mom's idea. She worked as a nursing supervisor in a facility, and she saw that they were using agencies, and she saw the bill rate.
Yeah.
And when she saw the bill rate, she was like, well, maybe this is something that I could do. What got me doing this on my own was because I was already working in the agency probably like 6 years or so, 6 or 7 years, helping my mom out in college. I ended up expanding it as my own company. And since I had already gone through the entire process, I already knew that process. Like, it wasn't like I needed to learn anything new. But the way that you get into this business, it's kind of, at least this is the order that I've always approached it in, and how I recommend you start, is you have to create an entity, right? That's the basic thing. You need your corporation, your LLC. You need to establish your business, get your tax ID number, and then everything else kind of should be done in the most logical order. But the reality is, the most important parts of this business are starting to establish your contracts and what your placement opportunities, and getting the staff that you plan on placing. In between that happening, there's of course just business.
All the things you need to do those two things.
Yeah, so you're going to need workers' compensation insurance, general liability insurance, professional insurance. You're going to need a payroll provider. You're going to need documentation for
Onboarding,
processing
hiring.
applications. You're going to need some sort of software that's going to help you keep track of your business, whether it's Microsoft, Excel, and Google Suites and that sort of thing. You're going to need things to just keep information
Everything together.
aligned.
Yeah.
You're going to need a business phone number. You're going to need a website. You're going to need a contract to negotiate terms around. That doesn't mean that you have to even like have this master contract that's going to work in all applications, because you're going to be every contract's negotiated.
Yeah.
You might approach a facility that wants to do business with you, and they use their own contract.
Yeah.
So you have to agree to their terms, and they could care less if you have a contract or not. But you should have something for those providers that don't
Ask for a
have that,
contract. Yeah.
don't have that legal capacity. You need to know what the rates are in your area, and that's going to vary based on the type of setting that you're placing in, the type of professionals that you're placing. Those are all the necessary steps that are in there. But I would say, just to dumb it down and keep it simple, you need a business, a legal entity in your area of operation, and you're going to need workers, and you're going to need placement opportunities.
Yeah.
If you concentrate on placement opportunities and workers, then everything else is kind of things that you just need to activate, right?
Yeah.
That's not the core of the business. The core of the business is connecting the workplace with the workers.
Yeah.
So
Kind of just have to ask yourself, okay, if I'm gonna be employing people, that's the first thing I need to do, right? Recruit. So what do I need to recruit? Do I need to create an Indeed account? Do I need to create a job posting? Like, how do I go about doing all those things and build from there? Keeping in mind that those are just supporting activities that will add to the end goal, which is getting contracts and getting employees.
I think, obviously, tools like Indeed, posting job ads anywhere really help to bring in strangers. But like I said, most people who are starting out with people that they know and staffing themselves. And that gives you a margin for error. Someone that you know is going to be more forgiving of payroll being 2 or 3 days late the first time you run it because
Yeah.
you timed it badly,
Yeah.
than a total stranger is going to be.
Right.
But those things, like, let's go super basic. You starting an agency, you should start talking to your friends, family, coworkers. Tell them, I'm starting an agency and I'm going to be hiring nurses. Where in this city? Do you know anybody? Start building a list of just names. Do you know any nurses? Can I call them and say that you told me to call them?
Yeah.
Right? Go to your friends, go to your colleagues, go to anybody that you got to get used to talking to people about your business. You're going to be your number one promoter.
Yeah.
You have to Donald Trump it. You have to always be talking about how great you are and what you're doing. Because nobody is going to go out there and talk about your organization as much as you.
Yeah.
Not your partner, nobody else. You have to be on constant promotion. I'm doing this. This is why.
It's
this
good
is why I'm
practice
great.
too for when you're talking to actual strangers.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So just start talking to people about what you're doing. You're currently working in a facility. Start talking to management there. Do you guys use agencies? How does an agency get in? I've been thinking about starting my own. I would even love the staff here. Do you think that's possible? Because I have 3 friends, cousins that work at other facilities. I told them I'm thinking about starting, and
Yeah.
they're looking, right? Is that something that you would do? What would be the process here? Talk to everybody about it. And if they don't need your service, they might know somebody who does, or they might be one of the few inspired people that turn around and say, you know what, I could connect you with somebody. The helpers,
Yeah.
the connectors. There's some people who are just like that. That you start talking to them about what you're doing, they get excited for you, and then they go one extra step and connect.
To help you out. Yeah. So you started posting videos a few years ago about starting your home healthcare agency when you were starting your second one, 8book, correct? And from there you were receiving a lot of inquiries and questions like how did you do this, and everything built up from there. So right now, what role do you play in healthcare, and how are you supporting these people looking to follow your steps?
Right now, I wear a few different hats, right? I'm still running my healthcare companies, but because of that social media presence, I get asked questions all the time. Instagram, comment sections. So what I decided to do was set up a consulting company to specifically work with these sort of people. Because as I started talking to people and addressing people's concerns, I would always get told, I worked with a consultant and this is what they told me. And what they would normally tell them is nonsense. Like, I don't even...
Yeah, you started to see all the gaps and all the bad information they were getting.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I think I can provide this service better than most consultants can, because I've been in it. And I could kind of build it in a way where it's not so heavily dependent on me. And that's kind of where the first sort of consulting piece came to be, which is our Passive Workforce, How to Start an Agency program. Because again, I don't like to repeat myself too often.
This is a pre-recorded course?
Yeah, that's the pre-recorded course that we have. So that allows people to watch in great detail how to start a nursing agency, healthcare staffing firm, etc. And then I decided to start adding kind of more and more levels of support based upon what people said. So, some people just want to do things themselves and don't just need information. Other people want to be able to ask questions. And then there's other people who want complete help. And that question came up enough times that we started to provide full setups of agencies where we take an agency from idea, hey, I'm thinking about starting a nursing agency, to launch, and everything in between. So all that administrative stuff that eventually gets sorted out, we handle that so that the customer who's getting started can focus on the thing that I say is important.
Yeah.
Finding the workers, finding the placement opportunities. A lot of people get stuck on all the procedural steps.
Yeah.
You could go online and see how
that are needed, but are not going to affect the bottom line.
Yeah, you could go online and you could see all the steps to start. Yeah, anything, right? You could learn how to make an airplane from information on the internet. But that doesn't necessarily, turn you into a pilot. That doesn't necessarily turn you into a proper business owner. Just the other day, someone reached out to me that has been following me on social media because she had an opportunity to buy a staffing agency, and I also buy. So she ran a deal by me, and the company is running as a 1099 shop.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making like
I believe there's a video on the channel about why you should never do that.
yeah, no,
Correct?
there's
Yeah.
certainly a video on the channel as to why you should never do that. But just to give you a quick synopsis, they're running as a 1099 shop, meaning they're not paying employer taxes, they're not paying workers' comp. Their net margin for the year is 20%. And how much does it cost in workers' comp and payroll expenses above your payroll cost? About 20%. So this company
They're not really being profitable.
They're not profitable because they're not running their organization properly, and they're only eking out what should be paid in the mandatory taxes.
Yeah.
And it probably advised her to start as a 1099 shop.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
They're avoiding all of those things.
yeah, and
They
that's
think they're going to be profiting more, but
yeah, and that's the bad guidance that people get because
Yeah.
they haven't been in the business long. Either the person who's consulted them is an idiot, or they haven't been in the business long enough to actually get hurt by that. Because a buyer like me, any private equity firm, any lender will look at that structure and say, I won't touch it because it's a powder keg of chaos to come. So, you know, the way that we go about helping our clients, you know, it's 20 plus years of doing this.
yeah.
And it's everything that I've learned from starting at home to scaling up the business to providing millions of dollars of services a year, employing hundreds of people. Like we've employed obviously thousands of people over the years, but
Over the years.
concurrently several hundred at the same time. And to do so requires you to have a certain sort of understanding of systems and processes. So again, from an organization starting in an extra room in the house, that bonus room, to, you know, hundreds of employees, we could carry you through that point, through securing an exit if you're selling a company, to assistance buying a company if you need guidance on how do you approach analyzing the right deal. Just like this person, she wanted to know, was this a good deal? She was bringing it to me
Yeah.
as a potential buyer, and she was also bringing it from the perspective of, is this the type of company that I should buy? And, you know, so from end to end, there's, in this space, there isn't something that we can't advise on, that we can't consult on. And that's not only healthcare staffing, that's home healthcare, skilled, non-skilled, and adult daycare services. And that's kind of where we play. And the reason why I want to, you know, educate people in the right way is because these professions and these businesses secured a good life for my family,
Yeah.
secured a good life for me, and has allowed me in one generation to move from being middle class to what would be considered wealthy in this country and by world standards. And if I could help other people kind of make that jump, why not? I would love to be part of people's success story. I love hearing when people are like, hey, I watch your videos, I started my agency, and now I am, you know, doing 1 million in sales or 2 million in sales or whatever the case may be. And that's in a year's time, or, you know, so that's satisfying to me to know that I've helped plant that seed in
To
someone
build
else.
those companies. Are you currently purchasing any of these agencies that you're helping build?
I would love to, you know, if they're ready to sell and they
Yeah.
organize themselves properly. Like that's part of the, you know, grand scheme of things. If I could teach people how to build and grow their agencies, utilizing the same processes and systems that I use, it makes it a lot easier for me to analyze where they're at and know that they're operating their company in a way that would fit nicely into what I do.
Yeah.
So if at any point they decided that they would sell, I could be the first call that they sell to. And I could look at that clearly and know that they ran the company right. They're not running a 1099 shop. They pay their appropriate workers' comp. They have their paperwork in order. They're maintaining personal records properly. All those things are things that I would be looking for during my due diligence to say, no, I'm out, right? So if I'm setting up these organizations, it's almost like a franchise setting up a franchisee, knowing that if they were to kind of mismanage and needed to buy them back, that they could kind of split it up properly.
Yeah.
Or, if they are consolidating again, they know that it's being ran properly. It just makes it a whole lot easier if you're trying to accumulate.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, to wrap it up, how can people get in contact with you if they want you to become their mentor?
I'm not mentoring anybody.
You're mentoring people. You're doing consulting sessions.
No, man.
Almost every day.
Yeah, I do consulting sessions almost every day, but I don't know, when people reach out to me, I'll tell you why. Like, I get reached out to on like Instagram, or someone saying, I need you to mentor me. And I am not, in my opinion, a true mentoring relationship is unpaid.
Okay.
And I'm investing a lot of direct time in that one person, like a child. Right?
Okay.
Like I'm not mentoring anybody like that.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to be confused that I'm gonna
You're gonna take them under
take
your wing.
20 hours out of my week to coach them and build them
Yeah.
up to.
But you've built resources for them to do that themselves in a way you
Yeah,
would
of course.
approve. Yeah.
And I could check in, and they could check in with my team to solve the most common problems that everybody here is capable of solving. So the way I look at it is like, if you want expert advice, you want structure, you want information, we have you covered. And the way that you can enroll in that is you go to our website, passiveworkforce.com. You can secure one-on-one consultation calls. You can register for our self-directed programs. And you can actually, phone in and have a meeting about us starting your agency for you. And depending on what level of support you're looking for, if you need one-on-one coaching, that's possible. If you need hand-holding throughout, that's possible. What you won't get, like I said, is 40 hours of my time trying to convince you on how to run your business properly. That's never going to happen. And it's impossible based on my schedule and based on
Yeah. We charge a lot for that.
Oh man, it would be ridiculous.